Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and if you ever thought that Pokemon Go is dead, you'd be right wrong now, wouldn't you? We've been doing a little bit of research. I've been wanting to do a video on Pokemon Let's Go for a while, been looking for the right angle, and there's been other stuff to talk about, but now, after a bit of research, we've come to an interesting conclusion. I say I did a lot of the research, but not all of it. Let's talk numbers first of all. So the lifetime sales of the Pokemon franchise in terms of games as a whole over its entire lifetime has been 300 million. That's all mainline games and spin-off games. However, on the other end of the spectrum, the free-to-download Pokemon Go has been downloaded 800 million times. That's a chasm of 500 million. Really should say difference rather than chasm. 500 million people who, presumably according to the statistics, have never played another Pokemon game except Pokemon Go, could be jumping into something like Let's Go as their first game because it has that sort of Go vibe to it. No. It doesn't quite work like that, does it? 800 million is a phenomenally large number. It's undeniable, and you've got to assume that most of those are going to be individual downloads by individuals. That 800 million is 6.5% of the population of the Earth, so whichever way you spin it, it's a pretty impressive number. But there will be instances where individuals have downloaded it more than once. Maybe they downloaded it on, say, an iPhone and then they decided to move on to Android, or the other way around, and so they downloaded it on a different device. That still counts as 2 downloads, even though it's only one person doing it. Also, there will be people that will just download the game twice with 2 different accounts and end up being one of those people you see hanging around gyms looking like this. There are so many different factors involved here and so many different metrics that we just can't account for. At the end of the day, I don't even think Niantic or Google or Apple or whoever you name really knows whether 2 downloads are the same person downloading on 2 different accounts or 2 different individuals. At the end of the day, we just can't know. But whichever way you slice it, 800 million, 500 million more than the total sales of Pokemon as a franchise is an enormous number. That is an enormous potential audience that haven't yet played a mainline Pokemon game or even a spin-off according to the numbers. Of course, it's not as straightforward as that, as we've mentioned. But is it any wonder then that Nintendo and the Pokemon Company and Niantic were all like, we could get some more out of this, and so they decided to create Pokemon Let's Go. But why would people be interested in Let's Go if they've only played Pokemon Go? Well, for some people it's fairly obvious, but I don't like to assume, and obviously, loads of different people watching this video will be of different understandings of Pokemon and sales and stuff like that, so we're going to go through it. One of the biggest things, one of arguably the most important things, is that Pokemon Let's Go is not a daunting game. I mean, you look at Pokemon as a franchise, you look at, X and Y, Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, any of the later games, and somebody sort of looks at it and says, hey, I've heard of Pokemon, I'm interested in giving it a go, and they say, what's it like? And a fan turns around to them and says, well, there's 800 different Pokemon to catch. There are so many different regions, every single Pokemon has a huge move pool, there are IVs and EVs and all these little stats, and every single Pokemon is unique and different. There are shinies, and all, before you've even got that far, that person's gone, you know what, I'm fine. The mainline Pokemon games are exceptionally excellent games, but they are extremely unfriendly to new players. I'm sure there are people out there who are thinking to themselves, well, I started with Sun and Moon and I'm fine, and that's fine. And there are always going to be exceptions to every rule. However, there are going to be a lot of people who are just put off by the complexity. Pokemon Let's Go does not have that problem. There's only 151 Pokemon, plus a few Alolan variants, and so it's just a little bit more friendly. You don't have to worry so much about, going into random battles and understanding all that sort of thing. It's just, there's a Pokemon, catch it, and then occasionally you run into someone and you'll have to do a bit of a battle. It's an excellent entry point into the series. The next point is, and it's one that I've already touched on already to be honest, is that it's a very good marriage of the 2 types of game. You've got the core game and you've got the Go mechanics, and it blends them very well. To people who've only played Pokemon Go, they see the mechanics that they already understand and know, and are very straightforward. You throw a Pokeball, you catch a Pokemon, and, you don't have to worry too much about the finer details. That seems very straightforward and very appealing, but There's more involved. Rather than just being, you've caught a Pokemon and sometimes you're going to a gym battle and tap away and tap away and tap away, you've got other things to take into consideration. Your Pokemon is going to grow in a slightly more complex manner. It's almost like an evolution of Pokemon Go, but taking pretty much all of the evolution from the mainline series. To people who've played the mainline series, the battle mechanics seem like second nature, but there is a lot of things to contend with, as I mentioned previously. So by easing people in who aren't familiar with the mechanics into this by using Pokemon Go, their sort of idea as a sort of a thoroughfare, as a sort of catalyst, it allows people to explore something deeper and more complex, but without overloading them. And it's incredibly familiar, and even going beyond the whole sort of the shrinking ring and all the Pokemon Go stuff that people expect, most people who at least have played Pokemon Go, or even just not, they know who Pikachu is. They probably know who Team Rocket is. If they have any understanding or know anything about Pokemon, they will know the sort of the basics, where the whole franchise started, and that's where Pokemon Let's Go blossoms. There's a familiarity. Anybody who was alive during the craze in the 90s of Pokemon is bound to be aware of certain elements, and so they're going to see this, recognize them, and go, ah, yeah, I know that. That's not too scary. And even if it is a little bit too scary, maybe, you know, for younger players it all seems a little bit too much and they just want to go back to Pokemon Go, you can play with someone else who's more experienced and can help them into the game. That's the co-op. You could, of course, arguably have this with any Pokemon game, just have somebody over your shoulder, explain all the sort of the basic mechanics and things like that, but it's not the same as having somebody in the game, essentially sort of in the sort of game space, helping you along and helping you achieve a new goal. The controls are very simple as well. Whilst you were flicking before, now you're simply going like that, which is... it's really simple. You want to throw a Pokeball, your immediate reaction, if you don't understand games, is to do a throwing action. That's what you do. And even when it comes to moving around in the overworld, yes, you're using a control stick, which may sound like a really basic thing, but for a lot of people who haven't played games, control sticks are kind of alien. You know, it's not like a mouse, it's not really like anything else in the world. Not in the world of computers, anyway. But all you need is one stick and a button, and there's no action going on. You don't have to react to things in the same way that you do in other games, so it's very easy to ease people in. That's what it's all about. That's all Let's Go is about. It's about easing people into a new style of game. The camera's gone off. It's all about easing people into a new style of game that they may otherwise have ignored. And I've heard, you know, quite a few people, including a couple of my bosses, say that Pokemon Let's Go will be their first proper Pokemon game, because it's not massively overwhelming and they've seen it from a distance and they've always wanted to get involved, but, you know, they weren't really of the age when it was big. It's a gateway game. It's almost like an enormous tutorial, an enormously enjoyable tutorial to allow Pokemon Let's Go Pokemon Go, this is confusing, to allow Pokemon Go players to enter into the main franchise with full force and comfortably. Of course, there will be lots of other people, myself included, who are hardcore Pokemon fans, and will still get an awful lot out of Pokemon Let's Go. It's not just for Go players, it's for everyone. So, with a potential untapped audience of Pokemon Go players that are in the millions, potentially even the tens or maybe even hundreds of millions, can you really blame Nintendo, the Pokemon Company, and Niantic for taking this approach? I can't say I can. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you analyze that subscribe button 500 million times, and be sure to check out nintendolife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.